Testing, 1, 2.
Microphone on.
Turn on your microphone. Excellent.
Good morning, everyone. I have a quorum of the Planning Committee in the room, so I will call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the May 27th meeting of the Planning Committee. We have a number of items on the agenda today. If you wish to speak to the committee with respect to any of the items that are on today's agenda, if you would fill in a request to speak form located to underneath the large Ottawa sign, you would, and get me the request to speak form, you can, we'll get you on the agenda to speak to the committee. If you just want to submit written comments, there is a form at the desk as well where you can submit written comments. Now, this is a public meeting to consider the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 1 and 7 to 10 on today's agenda. For those items listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days after receipt of a complete application for zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendment. Une feuille de commentaire est disponible à l'entrée pour toute personne désirante soumettre des commentaires écrits concernant les modifications. So there is a comment sheet at the door for anyone who wishes to submit comments on these items. Okay, so members of committee, I don't have any regrets. Councillor Manette and Councillor Harder are going to be late, but they intend to be here. Are there any, I should say, the agenda is as presented. We do have a motion coming forward. We'll be asked to suspend the rules to consider a motion to deal with hydro wires, and that Councillor Cadre is moving. On behalf of city staff, we've run into a problem with hydro wires and whether we can go under them or over them. I guess that's not right. We can go under them or over them, that's right. And there is quite a bit of, it will delay a project quite significantly and hold up development, so we're going to be asked to consider that at the end of today's agenda. And we're going to be asked to forward that to council tomorrow, because if we don't get the approvals done, Hydro can't design the work, and they won't design it based on our thinking we are going to approve it on the 11th, and time is of the essence to get them going. So we will be asked to, I'll call that at the end after item number 10. So are there any confirmation of minutes? Minutes 74, Tuesday the 13th of May. Is that carried? Carried. Okay. We'll go to the regular agenda items. Did I not do that? I'm sorry, did I not call declarations of interest? Well, maybe I didn't. Okay. Technology is great, but trying to get an agenda on the screen here doesn't always work so good. So are there any declarations of interest? Sorry. Seeing none? What's that? It's not. Yeah, it's always the instrument. Absolutely, it's never. It's never the user's fault. Tim, come on. Damn technology. Okay, we're going to go on to go through a consent agenda and see if we can deal with some items that are before us. Item number 1 is a deferral from 2 weeks ago, the zoning at 12 Sterling, and we have 2 people registered to speak. Ms. Hode, you agree with concerns. I'm assuming you don't want to relay those concerns. Okay. And Mr. Hopner, Mr. Hoban, you're in agreement. And I'm sure that you are going to want to speak to us depending on what Ms. Hode says. I don't know where you are. Oh, is that correct? Off to a good start. Okay. So, we're going to hold item number 1, and we'll come back to it. Item number 2 is an application to alter 60 Blenheim Drive, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to that item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 2? No? Members of committee, is this item carried? Carried. Item number 3 is an application to alter 140 Howick Street, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. Right. So, and it is located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. I don't have anyone registered to speak to the committee with respect to item number 3. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 3? And members of committee, you have to be aware that we are carrying the Built Heritage Subcommittee recommendation, which amended the staff recommendation to include the retention of the mature tree in the front yard. So, members of committee, is the recommendation of the Built Heritage Committee carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 4 is an application to alter 300 Acacia Avenue, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 4, an application to alter 300 Acacia Avenue? No. Members of committee, is this item carried? Carried. Item number 5 is the Building Bylaw 2005-303 update. No one has registered to speak to the committee with respect to the Building Bylaw update. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to this item? No. Members of the committee, is this item carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 6 is the Site Plan Control Bylaw update. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 6, Site Plan Control Bylaw update? No. Okay, members of the committee, we have a minor amendment. It's with relates to the draft copy of the bylaw that was attached. There were some small errors in the bylaw that we have to correct. So I have a motion, and it's actually, and maybe Mr. Mizzi, you can help me. It's we need to add some words in section 5.3a, residential use. So the statement would read, the number of dwelling units or rooming units in, I guess it must say a building now, and it must say a residential use building is decreased. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. And add a new section 10 entitled liens. Ooh. I guess that we left out liens, did we?
This particular section was inadvertently left out when the report was updated to the radar system. Again, technology, Mr. Chair. And this is referring back to the Municipal Act with our ability to be able to charge back for work that's done as a result of a site plan not being fully implemented.
Okay. So, Councilor Cotty, will you move that? So, members of committee, is that motion carried? Carried. Is the item carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 7 is the zoning of parts of 370, 404, 410, and 450 Huntmar Drive. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to item number 7. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 7? Zoning parts of 370, 404, 410, and 450 Huntmar Drive. Is that carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 8, we're going to hold. So we have speakers to that. Item number 9 is the zoning at 2235 Robertson Road. I have one person registered to speak to the committee, Mr. Fernie, who is an agent for the applicant who agrees with the recommendation. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to 2235 Robertson Road? Oh. Mr. Fernie, you're in agreement with the application. You don't need to speak to the committee as long as we're prepared to carry this item? Okay. Members of committee, is this the item carried? Yeah. Sure. Oh, you want a quick question? Okay.
Would if we vote to support this, will this change in any way apply to nearby properties on Robertson as well? Because this is right near the Greenbelt.
Mr. Chairman, this is a site-specific, so it applies to this property only.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Fernie, you're fine? Yes. Okay. So on the item then, is it carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 10 is an official plan and zoning, 1117 Longfields Drive and 1034 McGarry Terrace. We have one person registered to speak to the item, Mr. Fernie. And is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to item number 10, official plan and zoning at 1117 Longfields Drive and 1034 McGarry Terrace? No. Is there... Mr. Fernie, you're in agreement with the recommendation. You don't need to speak to the committee as long as we're prepared to carry this item? Okay. Excellent. Members of committee, is item number 10 carried? Carried. Okay. Now we're going to add, I'm going to ask for suspension of the rules to add an item 11, which is a motion with respect to, sorry, I'm just going to pull it up here, right. With respect to burial of hydro wires on Founder Avenue. And it's moved by Councillor Cadre. So we need to suspend the rules to do that. So can I have a motion from Councillor Blois or Councillor Cadre to suspend the rules? Okay. So all those in favor of suspension? Carried. Okay. Members of committee, Mr. Wise, Mr. Mizzi, who is going to just quickly explain?
Mr. David Wise will provide some comments on this matter and answer any questions.
No? Come on, 2 minutes. Just want to make sure that, or quicker is better.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this motion is to deal with an issue of significant technical utility modification along Founder Avenue, where an overhead power lines are in significant conflict with the Hydro 1 power lines that are existing. As a result, we require Council's permission to make an exception to the hydro undergrounding policy to allow for these lines to be underground and to be considered to be DC eligible as part of the road budget.
And there's no other way to deal with this issue?
We have evaluated all other options.
Okay.
This is the least expensive option.
And you need this to go to Council tomorrow in order to have Hydro undertake the work in a timely fashion?
That's right.
Right. Councillor Cadre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I can make just one more comment to the comments made by Mr. Wise, is in this particular case, we're not looking for any more funding. The funding is already there. All we're looking for is to get exception to the council bylaw for burial underground.
Okay. Councillor Wilkinson?
I thought I heard you say for DC funding, DC eligible or something when you said, when you said the funding that would be DC eligible?
It is DC eligible.
Because when I looked into DCs before, burial of hydro lines was not eligible for, because I tried that a few years ago. Has there been a change in the bylaw, in the provincial law?
Yeah, I'm aware of the motion that you raised, absolutely. The challenge with this one is Founder Avenue is 100% DC funded as a new arterial. The road construction budget is 100% from development charges, and this would be considered to be, in any other practical case, we would consider this to be a utility modification, which would normally be part of the budget. Because it is an undergrounding is the only solution that really is remaining and is the best and most the best value for the city. What we are asking for is we are asking for sanction from council to be able to underground these lines and to use DC funding in order to do so. This is a very unique circumstance. There is no other case in the city where we have major hydro and transmission towers located in such close proximity one to another, and as such a standard typical scenario would not be a good fit for this location. So yes, we are asking for these funds to be paid for from the DC fund.
So if you're saying this is different than when we were doing the extension of Campo Drive, which is also a DC-funded road for the hydro lines there because you didn't have the conflict with the other lines there. Is that the difference?
Yeah, that's right. It's the technical issue that's involved is very significant. It does involve utilities. It involves the ability to really deliver efficient and reliable service to the entire development area, and it is a very, very clear technical need that we require in order to make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Wise's memorandum. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wise. Can we just receive or note, is it receive or note? Just note the information that's previously distributed, these IPDs, and that's all our items. We can go back to item number 1. So, Ms. Hode, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Chair Hume, and members of the committee for postponing this for 2 weeks to give us the opportunity to have a meeting with the applicant and the neighbours to review the proposal. There seems to have, and I actually also want to thank the applicant who agreed to hold his development during the Scott Street Community Design Plan. It was much appreciated. However, there seems to have been a little bit of confusion on the part of, I'm not sure who, the planning department, the applicant, maybe the community association, as to whether or not there would be a follow-up public meeting to go over the finalized plans after the community design plan, which, as you probably know, established a building envelope. It did not rezone the property, and so we did not know what the final outcome was going to be, and we had heard that there were some changes to the applicant's use of the property, not necessarily the height we knew was given an envelope through the community design plan and the 45-degree angular plane. So I don't know, something that you may, planning staff may want to keep in mind if this sort of thing happens again, because it was our understanding that we would be getting another presentation of the final application, which is different, not enormously different than the original, but it is different. And you may have the same problems in your neighborhoods. Neighbors and communities like to know what's going on, particularly when the application is as significant as this one is. So that's a word of warning. The other item I would like to bring to your attention is the fact that this application is not on DevApps. I believe it was there at one time, but there is nothing there, and I have been checking regularly since I found out that the application was coming to the last committee. I understand from the planner, Ms. Edwards, that there have been some problems with DevApps. I don't know if it's just this application or whether it's all of them. And perhaps we could ask Councillor Tierney if he would maybe make this a priority. It is very important for community groups to have the information that's posted to DevOps. If
Yeah,
you
no,
expect us
I
to
hear
make,
ya. We hear
if
ya.
you expect us to make intelligent contributions to the discussion, we need to have those applications,
We hear ya.
those
Then it
background
should-
papers. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we get you on that one.
So someone's going to look into it.
Absolutely.
Make it a
And-
priority, please.
And I will get back to you on what happened with DevOps, because that was, because you're right, we put the stuff up there for very good and valid reasons.
And we do read it, you know.
I know people read it.
Even the geotechnical, I usually skim over it. I don't read all the details, but...
And that's the purpose that they're there. And if they're not there and there's a problem, we will correct that problem. But
Thank you.
Councilor Post, did you have a question on that? I was just agreeing with her. Yeah. So we will check on that.
Thank you.
So, okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Hoad. Is there any questions for Ms. Hoad other than thank you very much. Mr. Hopner, Mr. Hoban? No, you don't need to, you're happy if we could continue on? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Those are all of the speakers for this item. Members of committee on this item, is it carried? Carried. Perfect. Okay. Item number 8. There you go. You're on.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. The application before you is an application to rezone the property at 1131 Tarrant Road. The property is located at the southwest corner of March Road and Tarrant Road on the edge of the Beaverbrook community. The property is comprised of 2 lots, a small rectangular portion down in the southeast corner is currently occupied by a former single-family dwelling now used as a commercial office, and a larger triangular parcel wedged between March Road and Tarrant Road. 2 hydroelectric overhead lines run along the north edge of the property, parallel to March Road. Surrounding land uses include office and commercial development in the Canada North Business Park. To the east, southeast area is an existing multifamily residential development referred to as a Bethune condominium. And to the west, on the west side of Tarrant Road, is again a similar townhouse development along Varley Lane and Jackson Court. The property is bordered by March Road to the east, which is a major arterial road. This road has been identified for a future bus rapid transit route and a transit station at the corner of March Road and Tarrant Road. Tarrant Road to the west of the property is a major collector. The photos illustrate looking north up at Tarrant Road towards the, as I mentioned, the existing single-family dwelling occupying the smaller portion. And again, a similar shot looking towards the single-family dwelling. As well, this photo illustrates the existing vegetation surrounding the property, consisting of a mix of mature deciduous and an existing cedar hedge to the east of the property. The application before you is the proposal to develop the property for a planned unit development containing approximately 120 units. The development would consist of 2 buildings. On the larger parcel would consist of a multi-rise apartment building transitioning in height from 3 stories up to 9. On the smaller portion, it is proposed that there would be a low-rise 3-story apartment building. This is a proposed conceptual landscaping plan. Of course, this application would still have to go through site plan approval. This is just dealing with the zoning application today. The proposed, again, development, this illustrates the location of the mid-rise building set on a kind of angular plane adjacent to Taron Road, and then the 3-story low-rise development here adjacent to the existing 2-story townhomes. The property also contains this area for the easement for the hydro lines. It will be left as open space, improved with landscaping and pathways which will connect to other pathways in the neighborhood, accessible to the public. Elevations, the top elevation here is actually a view if you were standing on March Road looking to the west. The bottom elevation gives a better view or illustration of the stepped design of the building. This would be if you were standing on Taron looking north. The elevation of the proposed 3-story, again, it's a 3-story, and it demonstrates how the balconies are recessed into the building and will not protrude. The perspectives show somewhat of an illustration, again, looking north on Taron Road. In the foreground are the existing 2-story townhomes. Next to that is a perspective of what the 3-story apartment building, and then in the background is the portion of the 9-story. And the bottom perspective would be looking right on at the proposed development. Again, on your right, the proposed 3-story, but this illustrates the stepping up from the 3-story, 5, 7, and up to the 9-story building. The majority of the property is designated as general urban area. A small portion of the property, which runs under the hydro towers, is designated employment. This was as a result of the severance of this property. A small part was left in this employment area. However, no development is proposed for this employment area. Policies in our official plan reference, I should indicate that the application was deemed complete prior to the adoption of Official Plan Amendment 150. In light of this, this proposal was evaluated in light of our existing official plan. Policies support intensification in general urban area. They specifically encourage intensification to be targeted to our targeted areas, such as town centers and main streets. It also speaks to intensification is encouraged within 600 meters of a future rapid transit station. Policies also reference where high-rise buildings may be considered within 600 meters of a rapid transit station, and it indicates they are acceptable providing they're not within the interior of an established residential community. This property is located on the periphery of the Beaverbrook community. Key concepts of the official plan as well talk about intensification focusing on urban design and compatibility. Compatible development means that it's not necessarily the same or similar. However, it must coexist and work with the community that it's being developed against without any adverse impact. The proposed development is distinctive from the adjacent townhomes in the adjacent business park area. However, it is in keeping with current zoning of the existing high-rise apartment buildings and mid-rise apartment buildings currently located on Tarrant Road and the Parkway. As well, when evaluating proposals such as this, it's important to address all the compatibility criteria, and it was felt all the criteria were met, including things such as the vehicular access to the property is acceptable. The adjacent road, as shown through a transportation impact study, showed it is adequate to support this development. However, subject to the installation of an eastbound left turn lane, which will be the responsibility of the developer to construct. We must also look to ensure there's ample on-site parking, which there will be. All balconies, proposed balconies and terraces must respect adjacent outside amenity areas, and again, this was closely looked at, and they have been strategically placed to avoid any impact on adjacent neighbors. And finally, an important one is to look at the sun shadowing, and there is no shadow impact with this proposal. In accordance with the OP, taller buildings must be integrated with surrounding land uses, and this is accomplished by ensuring effective transition in built form. And this has been done in this development through a very careful transition of the building in the height, ranging again, starting from the 3 stories, going to a 5, the 7, and up to the 9. As well, the mid-rise building, its angled facade next to Tarrant Road and the stepping back, we feel provides acceptable transitioning and buffering. The height of the 3-story building, we feel is very similar in massing and size, and there's not much difference in height between the adjacent townhomes and the proposed 3-story apartment building. As part of the recommendation of adopting this amendment, staff are recommending a zoning schedule. And this zoning schedule would outline the maximum permitted height permitted at the various areas across the site. Colors have been added to this schedule to demonstrate, for example, the various heights. So, for example, the blue is the 3-story maximum height, yellow 5, orange 7, and the red would be the only area where the 9-story building could be permitted. As well, there are 2 other exceptions to the zoning we're recommending. One is to reduce the corner side yard, the lot line adjacent to Tarrant Road is considered as a corner lot line, and it requires, under the current bylaw, a setback of 4.5. We're recommending it be decreased to 3 meters to allow the building to be closer to the street, to create a more pleasant, pleasing pedestrian environment, more interaction in that area with the public. The second exception would be with respect to the rear yard. The rear yard is this short line to the east, adjacent to the 2-story towns. It normally would require a 6-meter setback. The exception we're recommending is for a 2.5. Staff feel this is appropriate because of the existing cedar hedge located, as well as they're proposing new landscaping. And again, staff are recommending no balconies would be allowed on this wall facing the east wall. This is recommended by staff to support this zoning bylaw amendment because it supports the direction of the Planning Act, the provincial planning statement, and the official plan. It's compatible with surrounding land uses, and we feel intensification is appropriate for this site. And as finally, it is a very good use, efficient use of existing urban lands, services, and infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, are there questions from members of committee? Councilor Wilkinson, do you have questions?
Yeah,
And
thanks,
Councilor
Mr. Chair.
Hubert?
I'll do some brief questions now. I'm going to say it again. I still have a really great difficulty in finding the compatibility. This is an area that is a low-density residential area. It's not the town center. The Canada North has the only area outside the Green Belt with a large number of high-rise buildings existing. They are mostly in the town center, where there are 3 15-story buildings existing, 3 10-story buildings existing, a 12-story building approved in a site plan, a 5-story building approved in a site plan. Within the Beaverbrook community, there are apartments. They tend to be much more open space around them, and that means open space from the visibility of the roads. And so you've said it was compatible along Terron Road. And I was trying to figure that out because all of there is one apartment on Terron Road, another one that sort of backs onto Terron Road. Both of them have wide open spaces between the road and the buildings where you can have mature trees. 3 meters is not enough space to put a mature tree ever. It will never be able to be there. And so I think that you're stretching things a great deal. If this was a town center area, I would say
Councilor,
much higher. So the question
not
is,
statements.
how can you say that this is compatible when it's different? And this is, I think you do recognize this is on average, a lower density residential neighborhood and not a town center.
Councilor Wilkinson, I appreciate your comments very much. One of the things that we consider when we're looking at areas of understanding whether something is a transitional area, whether something is on an edge of a neighborhood, is we look at the official plan designations as well too, and we look at clearly. And in this case, we have a case where we have the general urban areas abutting directly with the employment area, and at the same time, we also look and we note that it is also at the intersection of a major collector and also a major arterial as well too. So those pieces of information advise us that this is on the periphery of that established community. Certainly your comment with respect to Beaverbrook being characterized by low-rise residential development, we cannot dispute that. And certainly the policy also, I believe it's policy 15 in the official plan, also notes that in areas of low-rise developments within an established community, that would certainly be the case. However, in this case here, we have a site that appears to be located within an area of interface between the urban area and also the employment area, and it also is located at the junction of 2 major arterial roads. As such, in combination with the policy regarding transit stations, intensification that we're looking for to achieve our BRT objectives, we feel that this would be an appropriate location for a mid-rise building, and not necessarily a high-rise in this case.
So you are aware this property is a part of the Beaverbrook community as it's always been defined, though. It may be at the edge of it, but it's part of the community. Because we've had a line that was put in originally in the zoning in Canada that showed each community, and this was as part of that community. It has been for probably 30 or 40 years.
Yes, we are aware of that. However, again, I note that it is on the periphery of that community, Councillor Wilkinson, and I also note that it is, again, at the junction of a major collector and also a major arterial.
Now, the city is also right now just completing a study on what the zoning for high-rise should be in all of Canada. And that was done because of concerns about height densities. This piece wasn't looked at that because it was already under consideration. But it's very interesting that under the official plan, they're now coming forward with recommendations along March Road on the same transit corridor at the corner of Klondike, 4 stories, where it is next to the business park, maybe up to 6 stories. And that all the higher ones, up to 30 stories, should be in the town center, which is appropriate as far as the community is concerned. Was any of that taken into consideration, since there's now been a very detailed study showing about how high height should be along that corridor and along other corridors within Canada?
I appreciate that, Councillor Wilkinson. One of the things that we do have to base this upon is the date of the application. And this application was submitted prior to the adoption of Official Plan Amendment 150. As such, we do need to evaluate this application on the basis of the initial policies from the previous official plan. And that official plan did not provide a height requirements along that way. In fact, that official plan actually designates in areas where a transit station is going to go in within 600 meters, it promotes intensification and promotes high-rise intensification in that case. I believe the applicant was originally, and I believe the applicant may be speaking to this as well too, but they initially came in with a proposal for between 10 and 15 stories for this particular site. We felt that that was maybe not the most appropriate, so we have reached an agreement with them as per this report to bring them down to a medium-rise position. So we feel that, again, under that official plan, that this has to be evaluated against. This is reasonable.
Now the building line, I understand, is directly on the edge of the hydro corridor line. And we need to realize this is not just a little hydro line. This is a very high-voltage tower line of Hydro 1, and next to that is another high-voltage tower line for Hydro Ottawa. So these are very high-intensity ones. There's such that the people in the playground next to it find that the swing sets will actually vibrate because of the power there. It has quite an impact. Does this official plan, and I couldn't find it, so I don't know if it's there or not, have anything that says that where you have major hydro corridors, what the setback from that should be for buildings?
Councillor, I don't believe the official plan has any information with respect to hydro corridors. However, I can say that that's certainly something that we looked at very closely. That's something that we feel is definitely a very sensitive issue. And we made certain that the applicant had full discussions with Hydro, I believe it's Hydro 1. It's Hydro 1 throughout the application process. Hydro 1 has seen this proposal. They have evaluated it. They have considered it. And they found that there were no concerns with respect to their operations on the potential for this tower to be there.
Okay. Was that the local Hydro 1 or the Toronto ones, do you know?
Councillor Wilkinson, Louise informs me that was the Toronto office that they went through.
Because they do change, I know with other places along this hydro corridor, they change their mind frequently.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll bring some other things up later in debate, Mr. Chair, after I've heard from the delegation, but I would like to just let the committee know that one of the motion is going to be put forward shortly that I'd like to deal with before the delegations is to have a 2-week deferral because I was able to arrange for the owner to meet with Bill Terron, who is the founder of the Beaverbrook community, and is still doesn't live there, has no land in Beaverbrook, but he has been working with us on another development plan that you'll be seeing shortly to come up with how it could fit into the community properly, and that one will come forward with support from the community because of many months of working on it. He's offered to do a plan for this property that would be more appropriate to it, that would still provide major intensification and provide a return of investment for the owner who has, this is actually going from 1 unit up to a large number of units, so it's intensification almost anything you do. And so the request would be that we defer. He can get it done within 2 weeks because his time was already committed right now, and it might mean that we could come up with something that everybody would agree to and save us having to go to the OMB. So before we deal with all the delegations, I think it would be useful to do that.
Council, we will deal with that before we get into the full scale of delegations. Everyone has a right to talk in favor or against deferral before the main item.
That's right.
But we're now in questions of Ms. Sweet-Lindsay and the team about her presentation.
I just wanted the committee to be aware of that.
Yep. The committee is fully aware of that. Councillor Hubley, you had questions?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions for staff. Based on what Councillor Wilkinson was saying, are you aware if anybody from the city has investigated this vibrating play structure and whether it's going to have any impact on your proposal? And are they looking at relocating the vibrating play structure?
Through the chair to Councillor Hubley, the play structure and adjacent playground, are you referring to?
Councillor Wilkinson just referred to it, that it vibrates because of the hydro. I'm assuming somebody's investigating this, and if it's factual, it's going to be moved.
Again, we didn't receive any objection from Ontario Hydro. We haven't been in communication with them. As far as I know, they did not bring that up as a concern.
What about our Parks and Rec people that would be responsible for the play structure?
Again, through our standard circulation process, this was circulated to our Parks and Rec, and again, that was not brought up as a concern.
It was not. Okay. Could you just remind the committee again the distance to that to the transit corridor and the transit station that's being built across the road?
The transit station, I'll just go back. The transit station is proposed within the bus transit rapid route is going to be 2 lanes inside the 4 lanes of March Road. So the transit station would be in the middle here at the intersection of Tarrant Road and March Road, a distance of approximately 80 meters to the transit station.
We can't get much closer to a transit station than this proposal, then?
Correct.
Now, I realize you may not have been there at the time, but is there any notes when we voted, the previous council, voted to put the transit corridor down there? Was there any exemptions made for this area that we would not have the rules applied to the transit corridor? That we have to accept height in the transit corridor?
I'm not aware of any exceptions. The OP policies apply to this site as well as any other site along a future rapid transit route.
And just one last question on that. Do you know when that was passed? What year that was passed in the transit corridor rule?
Well, the proposal is in our current transportation master plan, and I believe it was last year as well, an environmental assessment was passed for this future route.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll be moving a motion to defer on behalf of Councillor Wilkinson. Do you want me to read it now or wait till later?
Are there any other questions from members of the committee? So if you want to introduce it now, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whereas the community has many concerns over the impact of the proposals for 1131 Tarrant Road on the existing community, and whereas the property owner has met with Bill Tarrant, the founder of Beaverbrook in Canada North, who has made an offer to do a design proposal at his own expense to show how a development on the site could be done, while fitting into the concept of Beaverbrook, the concept that Beaverbrook is based on. And whereas Bill Tarrant was unable to do that proposal in time for this meeting, but has indicated he will be able to do so prior to the next planning committee, therefore be it resolved that the report on zoning for 1131 Tarrant Road be deferred to the planning committee meeting of June 10th, 2014. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So is this on deferral, Councillor? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just, my thoughts would be to, if we're going to entertain this motion, we should do so before the public delegations.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
that if it gets deferred, they can go and enjoy the rest of their day.
That's right. Oh, and we will. But first I'm going to ask, we have the applicant, Mr. Weber. Do you have any, I'm going to let you weigh in on deferral. Are there any other questions? No. So Mr. Weber, just to deferral, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My client is opposed to a further deferral. He has been in the process now for over 2 years. He has been through many iterations with the staff. He has abided by all of the rules. He was summoned to a meeting Sunday at 4 o'clock, at which this idea was presented that Mr. Tarrant would do something. Now, Mr. Tarrant, for all his many attributes, as far as I know, isn't an architect. He certainly had some role in the foundation of Canada, but frankly, whether it can be done to provide a good return to the owner is not a question for this committee. That's not land use planning. And fitting into the Garden City concept isn't land use planning. There is an official plan in force. There are provincial policy statements. We would like to be assessed on those. We just see this as a further two-week delay from which no good can come. If Mr. Tiron had a role to inject in this, he's had over 2 years to do it. This is not fair to Mr. Bottrill at this stage.
Okay, I think that's fairly clear. Councillor Blais? Your question?
So are you saying that the first Mr. Tiron was made aware of this project was on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock?
The first we met with him was Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
You'll have to ask Councillor Wilkinson
Fair
when
enough.
Mr.
No,
Tiron was
fair
aware
enough.
of it.
Okay. And when you say summoned, you mean you were invited, or police came and took you to a meeting?
We were asked to meet with the ward councillor and Mr. Tiron. Mr. Bottrill made time to do that from his own time on Sunday afternoon.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And, okay, so no other questions for, do you have a question, Councillor?
Yeah, it wasn't, I made the request, and just to let you know, and I told Mr. Bottrill this at the time, that it was only when Bill Tiron saw the actual staff report and realized how polarized people were that would almost inevitably lead to going to the OMB, and he doesn't like to see things go to the OMB, that he made this offer. And I didn't have Mr. Bottrill's phone number at the time. I contacted staff to get that and gave him a call and asked him if he would be prepared at least to listen to him, which he agreed to and did so. So it was that's why the timing was at this point, not because of anything he could have done before. And it also relates to another project in Beaverbrook we're doing now where he has been very helpful, so it obviously looked like it might be something to resolve an OMB hearing, which I think all of us would like to see. So I think you're aware that the purpose of this is not to take away development, but to create it so that it's acceptable and will not lead to an OMB hearing. I believe Mr. Bottrill was made aware of that on Sunday.
Well, Mr. Bottrill was made aware of that in a fairly firm tone. Mr. Bottrill is also aware that he could have gone to the OMB 18 months ago and had this matter resolved long since. Long since. Just please deal with the planning issues. That's my client's request.
Just a question on that, then. The 18 months ago was on his original proposal, which staff did not approve of. So I suspect that's why he didn't go to the OMB at the time. Is that right?
No, he decided to work with staff to come up with a proposal that would be agreeable to the city. He played by the rules of the game.
Okay. There you go. Thank you very much, Mr. Weber. Okay, we have a number of speakers in that we're going to let speak to the issue of should we defer this application. So, and if the committee decides to defer it, we'll all be back in 2 weeks. If not, then everyone I'm calling now, including Mr. Weber, will have an opportunity to speak to the merits or in opposition to the actual zoning. So, Marlene Young, are you here? Yeah, do you want to come up? Do you want to come up and speak to deferral? Yes. Okay, come ahead.
Good morning. My name is Marlene Young, and I live at 44 Bethune Court, which puts me directly behind the low-rise. What was interesting, as an aside, is that I did not see elevations showing the proximity of the low-rise to my dwelling. I'm a new resident,
Okay.
As of last July.
Ma'am, what we're dealing with now is the issue of whether we should consider this matter today or we should consider it in 2 weeks. And so what we're really interested in hearing from you is whether we should deal with the matter today or in 2 weeks' time. If committee decides to deal with the matter today, I will let you speak and give your comments on the proposal, what it does and doesn't have, and why you object to it. So the purpose now is, because you registered to speak to the item,
yes,
we're giving you an option to speak twice, the first time now to us to say, deal with it now or deal with it in 2 weeks to allow Mr. Taron to reshape the proposal.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, then maybe I should defer the time to someone who can speak more clearly on the deferral option.
Okay.
that fair?
So you don't have an opinion one way or the other whether we deal with it today or...
I would like to have it deferred, but can I give you a proper recommendation? No. I would defer my time.
What you just said is a proper recommendation to us. You want it deferred? You'd like
Yes,
that
I
2
do.
weeks?
Yes.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jim Birch, is that right? Mr. Birch? B-I-R-T-C-H. And we're only speaking to the purposes, should we defer or not this item for the 2-week period?
Thank you. I have no comment on the deferral.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Monica Weiss? Now, this issue is whether we defer or not. Do you want to speak to the committee with respect to that?
I agree.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Mr. Young, Bill Young?
Yeah, I support the deferral.
Okay. Alan Coldham?
Yes, I fully support Mary Ann Wilkinson's recommendations to defer.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, Neil Thompson?
I support this in the interest of trying to avoid
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Myhill?
I support deferral again. If we can settle this without going to the OMB, I think that's worth a 2-week wait.
Okay. Gary Seeley?
I support the deferral in the interest of avoiding the OMB.
Okay. Mr. Malak, are you here?
I support the deferral, but I'd like to point out one thing that's part of the deferral. The very first part of the planning staff said, planning something like planning the future together. I'd like to remove that word together because there was no together before. And I'm hoping that this deferral will allow the together to play a role in the redesign.
Okay.
And the main part for the deferral is to try to get a correction to the fact that this is part of the internal part of Beaverville and not
Okay.
something that should be treated as a periphery. The developed part needs to be revisited as a major flaw in the planning committee.
Okay.
The deferral should enable reviewing that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Those are all the speakers that I have registered on deferral. Councillor, do you want to speak to deferral? Oh, Councillor Hobbs?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just wanting to find out if at the meeting on Sunday there was some idea as to this deferral might actually lead to the OMB being avoided, because I don't know if I respect the members that are here today from Canada, and they are looking for deferral as a way of avoiding the OMB. I don't know if they were at the meeting with you on Sunday, or what the understanding might be of a resolution here.
May I respond to that? Because I was at the meeting. It was just the three of us that were there.
So who was at the meeting, Councillor?
Myself, Phil Bottrill, and Bill Taron were at the meeting on Sunday. One of the things that Bill raised was the fact he raised and asked for the ability to do this because he could see it going to the OMB. He actually stated that. He stated to the meeting before when he said he'd like to be able to help with it, because we are doing a similar thing on, you may not see it, but there's an internal apartment building in there where a proposal came in for a high-rise that we've been working in that way with them and have brought something now that the community can support, which means that it wouldn't end up going to the OMB. So and I don't know if we will reach that objective or not, but it's worth trying. He's willing to spend his own money to do basically a design charrette that might show that this could be done in a way that is much more fitting to the community while still providing an intensification and return for the owner of the property, who has just one house there now. So this is a major intensification. If that happens and the community can support it, then we will be able to not. We then have to get together to see if it's
Yeah.
supportable, or
'Cause-
at least close to supportable.
Yeah, because that's what I'm wondering, because the applicant that spoke today didn't seem to be too interested in...
Actually, what he said at the time was he'd like to see what he put together, but he wanted to do the zoning first and then let him, because that could be done at the site plan. The difficulty is this may not be the right zoning for if we do something slightly different, and we might be better to have the right zoning in the first place rather than having to change it after. And that's all this 2 weeks will do, is to say whether this zoning that's proposed by this city right now is the right one, or some modifications to it. And then the details will come out in the site
But,
plan.
just from what I'm hearing today, it sounds like the members of the public should be very involved in that, because if you're just going to have an outcome in 2 weeks of two parties deciding, that may still not be acceptable to the
This
community.
community will be involved. Once we see what's there with the owner, we'll get together. We do that frequently.
Okay, thanks.
And this one a lot.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Blais?
A comment and a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just, kind of following up on what Councillor Hobbs was getting at. I'm not sure what deferral achieves, because even if the owner and Mr. Terron and the councillor get together on a new concept, that should be properly consulted on, which there is an amount of time. So we are talking about a much longer delay than simply 2 weeks. And if it was as quick as 2 weeks, there's no reason why we couldn't make the change to council when this goes to council in 2 or 3 weeks, whenever it's scheduled to go. So I do think we're talking about a much longer delay than 2 weeks, and obviously the applicant wasn't very interested in that, as we heard from his lawyer, so I'm not sure what deferral actually achieves, to be honest.
Okay.
When does it go to council?
Well, it would go not the 3 weeks, the 12th? Can someone help me with the date here? 11th, June 11th. Would go on June 11th.
It's the 10th. It's a Tuesday, it's the 10th. It's in the motion.
Yeah. So that's when it would go, June 11th. Councillor Harder?
That's when it would go to council on
Yeah.
June the 11th. So, I mean, I highly doubt that there's going to be a good outcome out of this. I highly doubt in 2 weeks that we're going to get that resolution. Having said that, if the next planning committee meeting was June the 10th, if you came back and said that there wasn't anything, could it go to council the following day?
It could, theoretically.
Would you be willing to allow it, since you are the chief?
Because I don't
of
like it.
I know, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, and I guess, we reserve the ability to go to council the next day for extenuating circumstances and exceptional circumstances. And I guess we could say that if this was an exceptional circumstance, then we could do that.
And that's my point, because the people that are coming out today to speak to this item are asking for 2 weeks. Personally, I don't think that it's going to matter, and, I'd be happy to deal with the item today. Having said that, the people that need to be engaged that would be disadvantaged if we didn't go on the 11th are the people that want the time, the 2 weeks.
Right.
So if we could think about it that way, I think it's more palatable for the committee.
Mr. Chair, I would support it going on the next day to get the deferral, to have a better look at it at this point.
Mr. Weber, you've heard the discussion that we would commit to go to council the next day, which means you don't lose any time between the time the decision is made. Does that matter to you?
Let me ask Mr. Bottrell to speak to that.
Thank you, everybody. I had something to say on the whole process that I've been through, but I've had this property, not in a short term, I've had it for over 10 years. I started this process 7 years ago. I have gone to the Beaverbrook Community Association 4 years ago, long ahead of my application. I've been through probably 6 different meetings with the public, various meetings with planning staff. And for me to receive a call on a Friday saying that Sunday someone has a design for my property is highly unusual. I respect Mr. Terron, I respect Mary Ann, and I went and we had a good discussion, but there wasn't anything presented to me. All I was told is if I wait, I might get something I like, and I don't know how that helps me. I've gone through this process extensively. It's not a cheap process. It's a very stressful process, I'll tell you that right now, and I've done everything I can, I feel, up to this stage. What I did say to Bill and to Marianne was, I would love to hear what he has to say. I'm a long, long way from putting any kind of shovel in the ground. Okay. I have a site plan to go through, and I would love to incorporate, and I've said this all along, I want to make this a very energy efficient building. I know Bill is very, very big in the energy efficiency field. I want to incorporate the Beaver Book. They had certain restrictions for color and types of finishing materials. I wanted to incorporate those. I'm absolutely willing to hear what he has to say. But I can't see any advantage to me or to this process that we stop now for 2 weeks. I think it's highly unusual, that's all. I just would like to say that. Thank you.
It is highly unusual, but we're giving you the option, we're giving everyone an option to hear what Mr. Tarrant has to say, and with the added benefit that you don't lose any time in the approvals process, because if we're going to do this, we're going to send you to council the next day with whatever recommendation planning.
So I have professional architects who've been doing this all along. Can you imagine a project that comes along and then all of a sudden somebody who not doesn't live in the area, but somebody that somebody knows through a councillor decides that he can design a project better than the people and the planners that we have? Boy, that's... and again, I'm willing to listen to them, absolutely. I'm at zoning. I'm not anywhere near building this thing.
We hear you. The option there, though, was in front of you, and we've heard you want to listen to Mr. Tarrant. The community would like to hear from Mr. Tarrant.
Mr. Tarrant has
trying to make something work.
Yeah, Mr. Tarrant's been at many of the public meetings, and at that point, there was never anything presented to me.
So, Mr. Weber?
That's all.
I may be a little cynical at my age. I suppose I've suffered too much over the years.
Welcome to the club.
I can see which way the tide is running on this, and that's fine. I appreciate the possibility of going to council the next day. I don't want to get talked out at next planning committee. I don't want to be 38th on the agenda and find out that
you're first on the agenda.
Okay. It's all we can do. I understand how the tide is running in this, but it is a waste of time, in my cynical opinion, and it does a disservice to Mr. Bottrell. But all that said, he's invested 2 years in cooperating with the city. An interim 2 weeks that doesn't represent a loss of time is just something more that has to be borne.
So I will allow you at the next committee to if deferral carries, which I sense that with your reluctant acceptance it might, to tell me I told you so. I'll grant you that to try and generate some goodwill. You will be first on the agenda, and we will send you to council the next day. You will not be talked out of the next meeting. So, councillor, you understand?
Chair, I said that I was supporting going the next day in order to get
giving you some latitude. It is not to be trifled with, I guess.
No more excuses. We deal with it on the 10th. It's peremptory.
Right. And whatever comes of okay. Councillor Hubley, thank you. Mr. Weber? And Councillor Blows.
I think
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question I'd like to have, and I'm happy to move the motion on Councillor Wilkinson's behalf, one of the things I'd like to see clarified if we do the deferral is the question that keeps coming up about the transit corridor. What was the councillor maybe can add some comments to this for the next meeting?
I think we need to get our professional staff to provide, what's the status of the corridor, and we can do that by memorandum. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm not getting here, Mr. Chair, and it's not the first time this has come up, is that the community supported the transit corridor going in there with the understanding that there's a 600-meter buffer, that height has to be allowed in that buffer. And yet we keep seeing cases like this where the councillor is saying that conflicts
Okay.
with the community. So I'd like to know, because as the public has said, we have to follow the rules that are here before us. That's what's outlined in the staff report, is the various things, such as the corridor policy.
Mr.
So I'd
Chair,
like
I'll
to
speak
hear
to him about it in meetings.
where that conflict comes
Yeah.
from.
So what we'll do is we'll make sure that Mr. Moser's noted down the discussion, and we'll work with Councillor Wilkinson to get her understanding of the issue, and we'll get a memorandum to members of council.
Perfect,
Committee.
thank you.
Okay.
And I think,
Councillor-
Chair, you have to add that environmental assessments do not deal with zoning.
Okay.
So that there's a difference.
Councillor, don't turn a win into something else. Councillor Blois.
I was about to say that, Mr. Chair.
Great minds think alike, Councillor.
You actually captured the notion or the sense of what I was going to say and ask you. Sir, you've been a very patient man, and I think what we're getting from you is sort of a reluctant acceptance that, what's another 2 weeks? No, we're not getting that? Okay.
I have professionals who have worked on this. I have put heart and soul into this, and now, because I was invited to a meeting Sunday to be told, and there was a lot of things told to me, and a lot of threats told to me about my property, I had to listen to that, and then to be here...
Can I just maybe jump in for 1 sec? Because I think you're going to dig yourself in here.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that for that to be the reason why we're deferring this, I don't understand that. Only you can address that as the professionals here, but
So
I don't
was gonna-
understand it.
I was going to give you credit because I think you have been a very patient man in terms of dealing with the city and the community, and you know, maybe what's another 2 weeks? And I know you might say that's 2 weeks too long.
But what's going to come of it?
But I think the chair is basically putting an ultimatum there. I'm cynical too, and I think to be called in on a Sunday night late in this process of being thrown a Hail Mary is not the way to do planning. And I think your legal counsel has made some very valid comments about what's before us and what we should be dealing with, as opposed to dealing with Hail Marys on a Sunday night. Having said that, I'm looking for some sort of, and I know you say you're not in agreement.
You know what? I will respect your whatever decision you make on it. I'm fine with that, okay? I do. I totally respect it, and if that's what has to happen, that's what has to happen.
I think Mr. Weber offered us some sage advice here, or some sage comments earlier on, and on the position. Has that changed, Mr. Weber? No. So, okay. So Councillor, put my glasses on. Councillor Hubley has moved deferral for 2 weeks to be the first item on the June 10th agenda, and going to council on June 11th. Is that carried? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the item. Are there any notices of motion? Are there any inquiries? Is there any other business? Okay, we are adjourned to the 10th of June.